Good afternoon, everyone. Hey, it's producer CJ, and it is time for another Hump Day with the one, no other, Optimus Prime of optimal real markets, the Sultan of Silver, the Baron of Bitcoin, the Gandalf of Gold. The ladies love him, the men model him, the fierce leader of the road to Ruta. Bix, what's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing well. What is it? Gorilla mating season in the Congo? That's why if you can't make it.
Well, I know a lot of people may be disappointed, but V is
Actually, no,
actually
I'm not. Truthfully, no. I'd rather talk to you anyway.
absolutely, absolutely. No, V is in meetings right now, and you are of the utmost importance. So V was like, CJ, hey, can you do this for me? Can you run? I'm like, I'll step it up. They're big gorilla shoes to fill, but you know what? There's a lot going on right now, a lot of excitement. So yeah, so I'm glad to be here. So what's on your radar?
Everybody's asking me about, is Trump a good guy or a bad guy? What's going on behind the scenes? It's a tough question to answer. I still believe absolutely he's a good guy. Absolutely, he had to put a lot of people in high levels of power that he didn't want to. But at the same time, he's getting things done, passing not laws, executive orders are not actually
He's the
laws.
king of it right now.
Oh my God. Not really as much as Obama did. Basically, a lot of these are just reversing the criminal actions of Obama. So yeah, and his latest big one was the executive orders to stop drug trafficking, which is right in the CIA's mothership. That's where the funding comes from for all the bad guys within the CIA, and so there's a lot of kind of purging of the old embedded bad guys within all branches of the U.S. government, and it's going to get messy when you do that. We're hearing a lot about leaks, and the resignation of General Flynn yesterday is a great example of, the bad guys aren't done; they're not gone. They're still embedded within our government, and I am surprised that Trump hasn't spoken out further on the the fact that leaking secret information is a treasonous offense. And so the people who do make this link, the leaks to the press, should be tried on treason. And if they are, the first one you prosecute will send a message to everybody else that, hey, leaking is not allowed. And even if you have to drag the press into it, the press shouldn't just, release any secret information. There's the freedom of the press, and then there's the sanctity of our secret information that, if released to the world, could be detrimental to our country. And it's a fine line, but the press can't legally release anything and everything they want, or morally especially. So yeah, I think it's the battles behind the scenes. Just because Trump got into office doesn't mean this game is over. And Trump is a part of the takedown of the bad guys, and he's an important part, but he's not the biggest part by far. There's so much more going on behind the scenes to extract these bad guys out, to try the ones that have broken the law massively and continue to break the law. So I think we're going to hear some more about that coming from Trump in the next few days, about the end of press leaks due to the basically busting these guys who are doing it. Because unless he stops the leak, we can't go further.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I agree with you wholeheartedly regarding there's so many unknowns out there right now, right? So it was a very, very delicate balancing act between taking over. Who do you bring aboard? How do you keep from the globalists, the political establishment from attacking you on all of the fronts, every front that's coming after you? But we are learning that they're still doing that, Bix. They are still attacking him. So, in regards to General Flynn, what are your takes on that?
Well, I think there's a few things. First of all, he was fired for doing his job. Basically, he wasn't fired. He was asked to resign. Theoretically, the way they're spinning it, his job as what was he? He was the national security advisor to the president. right?
Correct.
So his job is to talk to other national security advisors around the world and build a relationship with them. And that's what he did with Russia. And we all know that the bad guys want to stoke this the Russian war theme and try to get us into World War III. Trump is fighting that the best he can. So he went and he talked to Putin's national security advisor, and the media didn't like it. The globalists didn't like it. He was doing his job. And then he apparently, the reason he resigned or got asked for his resignation was that he didn't tell Mike Pence the proper thing and a couple of other reasons, supposedly. Now, what's my take? I don't think it matters. It's just like if Trump were to be taken out, I don't think it matters. This is so much bigger than any single person. This is the takedown of the cabal, the bad guys, on every level, from the government to the banking system, all the way up through the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. So, yeah, one general doesn't matter. There's another general right behind him. General Kellogg, I think, is his name. I wrote it down somewhere. But yeah, General
that's correct. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Right behind him.
And, he's a Trump appointment. So, yeah, he'll just carry on where Mike Flynn left. But I think also because of the way that the Flynn resignation happened, they said, well, he was just doing his job. He didn't do anything wrong. And it was all due to this leak. But Trump still let him go. I think he might be one of those guys that comes back to the Trump administration, because I know Trump doesn't want the best people in certain places when this crash happens, the monetary crash and the big announcements about the arrests. He wants people who are expendable, like Stephen Mnuchin, who's the Goldman Sachs market rigging expert. He was head of IT at Goldman, and now he's the Treasury Secretary. So Trump would love if guys like that were sitting in office, so that when the crash does happen and you have to fire the Treasury Secretary, you don't want to fire your best guy. You want to fire one of their best guys, one of the bad guys. Trump didn't even know Mnuchin, really. He was put there by the Goldman guys, and because of what he knows about computer market rigging. His job, his title at Goldman was head of IT and the computer algos and all that. That's exactly what he's put there for. Now, can he bring that to continue the market rigging via computers? I think to a point, and that the point he is not allowed to is the good guys saying, hey, no, we're not going to let you do this or that. And the good guys have control of that power, as was seen in the election. They had the power over the computer rigged voting machines. And whether or not Trump won on his own or would have won on his own is unknown. And I don't think it's really material, because the rigging was being done by the Democrats as well on the computer side. So they were both rigging, and it's just that the good guys had the power to get Trump in because they were in charge of the final tabulation. So, yeah, it's a mess, and we knew it would be, though. We knew the beginning of the Trump administration would be messy. I think the scariest thing for me is that if Trump wants to make America great again, meaning make America great as it was in the last 50 years, because we got there due to market manipulation and overthrowing governments. If that's the kind of great Trump is talking about, no, it's not a good thing that Trump's there. He might get rid of some problems, but you can't make a society great based on market manipulation and overthrowing governments and taking all their natural resources. That's not the kind of great America needs or wants, because it's unsustainable. And I think I do think we're in for a crash, probably within the next few months, because Trump doesn't want it to go too long without turning over the apple cart to start fresh. And he doesn't want to fix half the things and then come 2 years down the line have an economy implode because you were rigging the silver market or the gold market or any other market. These bubbles are unsustainable. How high the stock market bubble could go is unlimited when you sit there in the basement of the U.S. Treasury with a computer that can buy any amount of stocks and bonds and sell any amount of gold and silver derivatives at any moment in time. So it's tough. It's a tough game that they're playing, but we don't know what's going on specifically behind the scenes. If we do see a shakeup in the Trump administration over the next 2 or 3 months, and with a key part of that, this guy Steve Mnuchin being asked to step down, asked to resign, then we'll know the good guys have won, and it's kind of not freestyling, but there's a lot of work to do after we take out the bad guys.
Right. What did you see where Hillary was trolling that Flynn had resigned? Did you see her actual tweet that she sent out?
Well, yeah, I don't even think Hillary is functional, even alive these days. I'm not so sure about that. I think they might, have her pass away before all the pedophile charges come out. So yeah, I don't believe anything that comes out of the bad guys, and if they put up too much of a stink, they'll be taken out by the good guys, and that's easy now that they don't have their protectors anymore. And the biggest thing for the Clintons, especially, is the way they fund their empire is through narcotic trafficking, and that's the thing that Trump signed the executive order, basically putting a stop to. And if you see the pedophile trafficking, there was 474 arrests in LA, and apparently they're singing like canaries. And they're going to bring down some very, very powerful people in LA, and the same thing's going to go on in Washington, D.C. and New York. I heard it's going on in Pennsylvania already, and then it might have even started in Chicago and Canada. But those are rumors, and I don't know what those rumors are. And it's interesting that General Flynn, who just gave his resignation, in November he was tweeting about, with the Pizzagate and the pedophiles are going to go down, and then the New York Police Department has all the goods on Hillary and the whole thing. So that might have been part of the reason he was let go, because you don't want certain people in certain places when this all falls down, especially if Trump wants Flynn to be there for the long run. We don't know what he's doing behind the scenes, not as a government official, but for the good guys. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah, I don't know the guy, General Flynn, but everything around his resignation is kind of suspicious. Because Trump can say, I'm not gonna fire the guy because he was doing his job. So it might be that they found some dirt on him. The good guys found some dirt on him, or it might be that they just want him out of the way so that they can progress with the takedown of the embedded bad guys within the government that are still there.
Right. I think that there's going to be a few more to fall. Exactly what you just said, that there's going to be a few that are set up that they know in the interim that they're going to be up there. They're going to get through, they're going to pass their hearings, are going to get appointed, and then boom, it's going to happen. One of the things I find interesting, Bix, is to take a look at the Fed and what's happening at the Fed right now with all the resignations. And I think you may have alluded to this earlier on your broadcast regarding the number of open positions that people were citing. So what in the world's going on at the Fed?
Well, the Fed's a big part of it. If we're going to take down the monetary system, the Fed's the place you gotta get in. Right now, Board of Governors is supposed to have 7 members. One being the chairman, the vice chair, which is Stanley Fisher. Janet Yellen. She's such a non-entity. I just always forget her name. But yeah, she is the supposedly chairman, but the guy who runs the show is Stanley Fisher, the vice chair. And then there's only 2 others on the board right now. There's supposed to be 7 governors on the board. And the guy Trudeau just stepped down. And very interesting is that Scott Alvarez stepped down. Now, Scott Alvarez is their chief counsel. So the lawyer for the bad guys, basically, the Fed bad guys. And Alvarez is the guy who has testified many times in front of Congress. And when Ron Paul asked him, can we audit the Fed and can we audit the gold? And, Alvarez would try to lawyer himself around saying, yes, we can have a paper audit of the gold, but we can't have a physical audit of the gold. And Alvarez is key to he was the legal department within the Fed who would say, you go to your legal department when you want to cover your ass after you do illegal things. So Alvarez was there for 36 years. He was over 10 years as chief counsel. He was definitely working for the bad guys, working for Stanley Fischer within the Fed. Yeah, I'm not saying that a lot of my work goes to the Fed. Are the ones trying to destroy the system to get us back to a gold standard. That goes back to the original Road to Ruta stuff. So a lot of the thousands and thousands of people who work for the Federal Reserve System are not working for the bad guys, but some of the top people within that system are, and they are being culled, shall we say. I do think that after the next monetary crash, there will be a combining of the Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury, because no bank would survive another 2008 style crash, but the problems now are 10 times bigger. It won't be a $700 billion bailout. They'll go to Congress and say we need $20 billion to restart the exact same system that we've been playing with all these years, and they're not going to get that kind of bailout. And I think everybody is positioned for that. I think Bernie Sanders is going to play a big role in how the new money within the United States is going to get reallocated. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff to go through. Just getting Trump into position with the good guys this battle has barely begun, truthfully.
Yeah, I always laugh when I hear the political pundits. They make the comment that the Fed must, be transparent. They must remain independent. We don't need to audit them. They can be independent. They don't need to have oversight. And then these are the same criminals that for the last several years have manipulated the market, have rigged the entire system. And it's just interesting to see. To me, that's going to be one of the signs that if an audit the Fed bill passes and it makes its way to Donald Trump's desk to sign, and if he does and doesn't, I think that could be a clear sign right there of who he's truly maybe working for.
Well, no, I have no doubt that he's working for the good guys. And he's only a small part of this. It's so much bigger than Trump and even the generals that he's put in. This is, if there's a deep state, this is half the deep state has said, this other half is corrupt. We got to get rid of them. And can we do it and still, have kind of a smooth transition for the United States of America and return to our founding documents, the ideas of the founding fathers, versus a Mad Max state that could also. I think both those are the two probabilities of, after the system crashes, can we return to something viable, or do we really turn into splitting up the states? I do think that the whole thing about California wanting to secede from the union and all this stuff, I think every state should secede from the union and get rid of the federal government. Federal government was never meant to be 35 million people sucking on the tit of the federal government. That's what we have today, if you include the contractors. That's over a tenth of the population is employed by the federal government, and that's just wrong. And that our country was never set up. The United States, the states were supposed to have all the power, and the federal government had very limited power for a reason. So I don't fault California for saying I want to get out of the United States, but other than the reason they're saying they want to do it. If they want to, if California, and I live in California, if California wants to open their borders for everybody, the new country of California would last maybe a year before it implodes upon itself, just like Germany is imploding upon itself right now, because they couldn't afford it. Where would they get the money, and what money would they use? That's the other thing. When the states talk about, I'm going to secede from the union, well, okay, how would that not destroy the banking system? How would that not destroy the electronic assets of every single human being on planet Earth, including the people within your state turning to a new country? So it can't be done without a destruction of the monetary system.
No, I think you nailed it. I think if you look at Washington, D.C., and you take a look at how the political establishment is fighting, tooth and nail to preserve this monster entity of what they created. You're absolutely right that if we could dissolve or at least reduce the federal government to like, 10% and give all the powers back to the states, how much better of a society would we be?
I agree, but I mean, there's a problem. Then you've got 30 million people out of work. You got all kinds of problems and issues. The problem is the transition, and there's the one way to do it is just to pull the Band-Aid, destroy the banks, and start fresh, reallocating money to the people. And the other way is to try to make this slow transition a smooth transition. And all the smooth transition really does is maintain the status quo. The rich have all the money, the poor are dependent upon the state, and a smooth transition doesn't change any of that. I mean, everybody who says, oh yeah, there'll be a revaluation of the monetary system, or they're going to release these secret funds, or they're going to the NESRA bill, the National Economic Stability and Recovery Act, is going to change how everybody's debt is calculated. The thing that they're missing is that we turn into a virtual asset society, and those virtual assets are heavily skewed and weighted into a handful of people, less than 1% of the people. So if you revalue currencies or get rid of debt, anything like that, the weighting will stay the same. Those who have almost everything these days will keep almost everything. It'll just have a different value. And same with and then everybody who says we should give everybody free stuff because the banks stole all our money. I tend to agree with that, but how do you allocate it? The biggest problem in any monetary system is asset allocation. That's right. I'm quoting Alan Greenspan in that from his book. And that was the big thing in the Road to Rooted documents out of the Fed Boston is, after the system fails, how do you reallocate money to the people of a nation in a way that they will both accept and will think is equitable, at least a majority of them. Nobody is going to be happy. But if the majority of them buy into this idea of here's how we're going to do it, and what the Fed Boston information was saying is they're going to do it by Social Security balances, meaning that those who have paid in the longest into the system will get the most, and those who are just starting out will get the least. And there is an argument for that being fair because, first of all, you're going to get the more senior people to buy onto it because they're going to get the most, obviously. But then you got people who aren't even in the Social Security system, which there are some other retirement systems that don't, within the federal government, that don't even use the Social Security system. So there's a lot to think about when we talk about reallocation of money, and will globalization end? Yeah, I mean, Greenspan said it after he left the Fed. Is this whole system is built on globalization, and the moment that reverses is the destruction of the monetary system. And I think we're seeing it reverse right now with Trump saying, we're not, unless we get a fair deal, we're not going to trade with other people. We're going to throw tariffs on Mexico and China, and the reversing of globalization is total destruction because nobody wants to give up. Once you've been given something, it's like kind of like all these people on Obamacare and who got the Obama cell phones and Obama, payments for welfare and things like that. Once you give something to people and you try to take it back, that's where it gets problematic, and you have high possibility of potential for social unrest. And I think we will have to have some kind of social unrest. And the good guys that are trying to make this transition smooth are fooling themselves if they think they can do it equitably with everybody, lining up behind Trump saying, oh yeah, this is the right way to do it. And, we're going to make America great again by continuing to rig the markets. And, we'll just think of our own welfare first, and we'll take away things that Obama gave. It's not going to work like that. It can't happen like that way.
Right. No, exactly. So, there's a lot of speculation out there that, people are talking about, once the actual dollar and the reset happens, that there'll be more of a domestic currency and then potentially an international currency. Have you taken a look at that, Bix?
Well, that's hysterical. I mean, who would say it, first of all, from a position of authority? I mean, that's the problem in this whole concept of revaluation. There has to be a decider, and that decider has to be an authority believed by every single human being on planet Earth, every country, every city, and every state. Name me one authority today that can claim something like that they're going to be the decider of how this is going to be, rejiggered. And the closest thing to it in their system, in the bad guy system, is the IMF, the International Monetary Fund. They are hardly an authority on what is good and correct and honest. So no, they will have no say. And the Federal Reserve systems around the world will have no say. The treasuries around the world will have no say in the revaluation. The United States has a potential within the power of the government to go back to a congressional way of dealing with money where Congress votes on it. But what would Congress approve? They're not going to approve the United States get anything worse off than what they had before. And all these revaluations of saying, yes, so China will have a more prominent role in the baskets of SDRs, and the USA will have to take a lesser role behind China and India and Russia. No, it's not going to happen that way. There's no authority out there who can make that call that the global population would accept or believe. Every single country is going to have to go it on their own. And luckily, we have a constitution that gives our Congress the power to print and determine what money is within the United States. And we're only going to have to worry about the United States. That was very clear in the Fed documents, that there would be no trade between other countries once this happens. So that's kind of where we're going. And anybody who says, "Oh yeah, it's going to be a revaluation," that requires a monetary authority, and there is none.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So for our listeners out there, and I know that you touched base on this in regards to the silver pricing and the COMEX. So why don't you share a little bit around what you covered today on your broadcast?
Well, the COMEX, everybody knows it's a con, it's a rigged game. What they don't really dig into is how rigged is it? How much of a game is it? How are the values of silver and gold determined on the COMEX? We all know it's futures and options. It's not, metal trading hands for cash. There is a delivery component, but in the registered inventory in the COMEX is 300 million ounces, 300 million. And every day on the COMEX, we're talking about the average daily volume on the COMEX is 80,000 contracts. That's the average daily volume, meaning trading per day in 2016, which is 400 million ounces that trade of electronic futures and options that traded every day in 2016. So you've got an inventory of 30 million, and every single day 400 million ounces are traded. And if you take, and that's every working day at the COMEX, you times that by 252 days, working days within 2016, you end up with 100 billion ounces of silver that traded in 2016 versus the 30 million ounces on average that was in inventory all year. That's how prices are set on the COMEX. It's got nothing to do with physical silver at all. Those who say, "Oh yeah, we can pull out all the physical silver," and that, well, there's problems with that. First of all, you do something like that, you're going to turn out, like what happened to the Hunt brothers. You get financially destroyed. The banks will cut off your credit. They'll change the rules, and they'll take you out, and you lose your fortune. That's exactly what happened to the Hunts in the late 70s, early 80s. Warren Buffett made a very similar move, and he almost got arrested and put in jail for crimes he supposedly committed at General Re, which was his reinsurance company. So in the bad guy criminal regulators bring Warren Buffett into their office and say, "Okay, Warren, here's the deal. We'll either send you to jail, or you're going to give us your 130 million ounces of physical silver that you have procured in the late 90s, and we're going to call it even, and we won't press charges against you in General Re. If you don't do this, you're going to jail." So what does he do? He gives them 130 million ounces. That silver is used to start the SLV criminal enterprise, the silver ETF, where you look at the volumes on the ETF and the short position on the ETF. An ETF, a physical ETF where every share represents an ounce of silver, should not have any short positions at all, and yet there's 8, 10, 15 million ounces short at any given time. It's all a criminal enterprise. The volumes of trades on the COMEX last year in silver alone went up 41% to 80,000 contracts per day. 41%, and the amount of silver mined last year went down 3%. So the amount of silver available for any kind of legitimate hedging went down 3%, and yet the volume of hedges and futures and options went up 45%. That's how desperate these guys are to keep the price of silver in check. Very similar with gold. Actually, I think the gold daily volume went up like 51% to 30 million ounces every day traded. Crazy. And this is just one exchange. You go to the LBMA, the numbers are even bigger. And those are supposed to be physical ounces transferred, which is ridiculous. So yeah, the whole problem with market manipulation is the CFTC cannot stop the manipulation, because once you stop the manipulation of gold and silver and oil and the US dollar and all that, then the game is over for fiat money. And they say, well, that would be a much worse scenario than the rigged markets that we have. And that's kind of been the mantra in America since at least the 1970s, when computers came in and took over virtual assets versus the real thing. So yeah, get your physical metal out of the exchanges, get them out of ETFs or third-party storage. Even if you trust the storage company, when the banks go down, the guards in front of that silver storage company are going to walk into that vault and take their silver home to save their family. So if it's not in your own possession with no third party, you're not going to see that silver again when this thing falls apart.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And in terms of the actual inventory of silver, and you mentioned it, as far as the actual available, the mining and everything. So what do you anticipate as far as how much longer can they continue to push the markets down, push the pricing down, and what is your forecast in terms of price? And I know forecast is a forecast, but what do you anticipate as far as the demand versus the supply?
Well, it's kind of two different things we're talking about. There's supply and demand for silver. Physical silver supply versus physical silver demand. That's not where a price is set. There's not an exchange in the world that prices are set based on physical demand and physical supply. That's completely different than what's supposed to be, but that's the way it is. So how long can they suppress the price of silver? They can suppress the price of silver for as long as they want, and at any quantity that they want. Now, there's a difference between that type of suppression and whether or not you can get your hands on physical silver, because we've seen shortages of physical silver all the time. Usually it's when prices drop, there'll be a massive shortage, which is completely against the law of supply and demand. The less silver out there, the price is supposed to be going up. But in this backwards world we live in, we see in silver, the price goes down and everybody rushes in to buy, and the price keeps going down, and then we have shortages of silver, and the U.S. Mint has to stop making the Silver Eagle rounds. There's a lot of conspiracy going on at the U.S. Mint. They basically this year they stopped reporting the amount of silver sales. And I know this because I have an inside guy who said, oh my God, the numbers are through the roof in January. They reported one number in the beginning of January. It was like the first day was huge. And then now they're barely reporting any. So yeah, it's a mess within the Mint. Well, the Mint has a big problem too, because they have allowed the bullion banks, it was HSBC, but I don't know who runs their book now, to short their inventories. So they call it hedging. We hedge our inventories. The Silver Eagle law was very specific, and it was written for a purpose. It was written in 1987 by Barney Frank and somebody else. And the reason they wrote the Silver Eagle law to differ from the American, the Gold Eagle law, is that they wanted silver to destroy the monetary system. So they wrote the law by saying the U.S. Mint was required by law to provide coins in quantities sufficient to meet demand. No matter how much the demand was, it was illegal for the U.S. Mint to stop producing coins. If they had to go out and buy them for $50 per blank, they would still have to do that because it's a function of price. And the law doesn't say, oh, unless you have to spend more on the blank silver rounds. And they changed the law after I complained, and a lot of people complained about it. But they changed the laws so that the Treasury Secretary gets to decide whether or not they are meeting sufficient to meet demand. It hasn't changed the content of the rule. It didn't give the Treasury Secretary the ability to lie about it and say, oh, we are putting coins on allocation and limiting the amount of coins because I don't want the price of silver to go up. That is not within the law. The law says, and still says, has to provide within the quantities to meet demand. So there should be no such thing as limited sales of Silver Eagles, and there has been. I mean, last year it was almost the entire year the Mint had them on allocation, and then you end up with these numbers that aren't so spectacular for the sales of Silver Eagles during these certain years within the last 20 years, but they're not true. They're fake. You know, the numbers were still strong last year, but they half the year they were on allocation. And the U.S. Mint and the U.S. Treasury wouldn't let you buy them. So criminality runs top to bottom within the silver market, within the U.S. Mint, within the U.S. Treasury, within the Fed. And it's because it's so important. It is the canary in the coal mine for the unbacked fiat system and can destroy the banks. I've showed it a million times. The price of silver goes to $100, every single bank in the world will be destroyed because the large silver shorts will get destroyed and they are counterparties to every other bank. So will it be silver that destroys the system, or will it be something like the end of the euro, which is slated for this year because Greece is asking for more bailouts and kind of laughing all the way now? I don't know, but I do think it's happening this year, and then we're going to have to basically the whole system falls down, and then we're going to have to recreate something that we want to go forward. And hopefully it is not based on a lie like our current system is.
Right. Absolutely. I just look at everything that's going on, right? So we look at everything in the media, all the turmoil, all the confusion, everything is set up. Are they setting us up for something that's around the corner that a lot of us in the new media have been talking about? And that's one of my concerns, is that whenever that happens, are our listeners prepared? So in terms of the metals, silver, gold, and everything else, it's not necessarily more of an investment. It's more of a potential survival, correct?
Well, it's both. It should have been an investment, but now the biggest and best reason to invest in gold and silver, mainly silver, is the end of the manipulation. That's what I've been waiting for 15 years. The end of the manipulation, and you can see ways that it might happen. It almost happened in 2008. The end of the manipulations means the shutting down of the electronic silver markets. The LBMA, which has struggled greatly, and everything's going to the Shanghai Gold Exchange. And they don't have a physical exchange for silver in Shanghai. They have a futures and options exchange because they know there's not enough physical silver out there to do that. But the LBMA has just lost complete credibility, and supposedly behind the scenes, all the big metal traders are going elsewhere because of the loss of credibility from the LBMA. And the LBMA is it's a small handful of banks that still the same thing goes on, the daily fix, and it's just written in a different way. And they tried to say, oh, this is how it's tabulated through all these different machinations, but it's still the same 5 banks. There's only 5 clearing banks at the LBMA. It's HSBC, IBC, Standard Bank, JP Morgan, Scotiabank, and UBS. Those are other than JP Morgan, those are the banks that were named in the Deutsche Bank silver manipulation admissions in court. So, and they're being sued right now. And there were a whole bunch of new banks that were added to that lawsuit too, just recently, including Barclays and BNP and Bank of America. So, yeah, where is the justice? Where will it end? Where will silver and gold manipulation end? It'll end when everything else ends, when the unbacked fiat monetary system that was created in the virtual world of computers in the 1960s and 70s and has grown to a monster these days, when that last mouse clicks, and it's probably going to be at the basement of the U.S. Treasury, and it implodes the entire system, and everything virtual comes down. All the derivatives bring it down. So every 401k, every checking account, savings account, bond, you name it, and it will leak into the physical stuff. There'll be so many attempts to, get their assets out of the stock market. Well, I own a certificate or a share. Well, 10 people own that same share. Who's going to get it? And 1,000 people have claim to that same share too, an electronic claim. They have less of a chance than the person holding the share, but is any country even going to allow personal ownership of a mining share? Clearly they won't do it for foreign governments. Not a foreign government in the world will respect the laws of the United States' claim to metal in the ground when the system crashes. So it's a mess, and it's going to get ugly, and I think it's going to happen this year. I think Trump has been put there to kind of manage the bankruptcy of the unbacked fiat monetary system, and he loves his bankruptcies, and we'll see what happens.
Right. And for our listeners, I mean, to understand it, I mean, you're seeing it everywhere, right? I mean, you're seeing the war on cash, everywhere from India to Australia. Even here in the States, there's a lot of cash controls that are being put in place, that they are trying to move us to a cashless society because they see these things happening. And the worst thing that you want to be caught up in right now is the fact that you're completely in digital. You have your money in the bank, you have your IRA, and you haven't prepared yourself from around the corner, because all the signs are there, right? I mean, everything is rigged nowadays. You don't know what to believe anymore in terms of what they report regarding the unemployment rate, the student loan, the data, everything that's coming forth. And now we're also learning in regards to the algos, right? How they're manipulating things. And Cliff High, has posted some pretty important information, not only in regards to how they're suppressing the new media, but he's also forecasting what he sees as some a 5-year span of some very turbulent times that are coming up. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, Cliff's brilliant. And I mean, his interpretation of the data that he pulls out, it's funny because he has to interpret the data, but at the same time, he has to deal with the reality that the data is there and staring him in the face. His latest video actually mentioned the road to Ruta, is that Google, and I would say the other sites like YouTube and Twitter, are definitely trying to suppress the alternative media by running their algorithms so that you don't get as much views. You don't, if you Google road to Ruta, they're slowly taking it out of the system and blocking people from seeing the new media. And he says his programs that he ran, he sees it happening for companies like SGT Report and Max Kaiser and Alex Jones and his own site. And then names like Pizzagate and Pedophile are all being manipulated through the algorithms out of the system, so that when you do a search, and it's not all happening at once, but it's slowly but surely, you're not going to get the kind of results that you normally should get. And it's all being done within the back rooms of Google and YouTube and Twitter and the social media sites, so that they can steer and control the narrative and the language and information. So until Trump gets in and ends that kind of thing, I think if you're going to run I'm all in and all in agreement with, it's their site. They can do whatever they want. But if it's a social service that they're providing, they should at least tell people, put a disclaimer out there that we decide what the content is. When you do a Google search, we decide. It's our company. We're going to decide what you see. Right now, there is no disclaimer that they should tell people that they are screening the searches for certain, and even list the sites. They kind of did list the sites with that article about, the fake news media and all that crap. So yeah, these big companies like Google and YouTube and Twitter, they're all doing that. They're going to destroy, they're attempting to destroy the alt media, especially people who all they do is that they make their living off of YouTubes and spreading information through YouTube. They're really hurting now because they can see their views going down, 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 and their advertising revenue going down, 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 and they're pretty soon they'll just freeze them out, and you're gonna have to figure out ways to get around it, and it's really a pain in the butt. But on one hand, I in a free market you can decide what your program does, but in the same thing, should there be a government controlled entity like the phone company, or should those be government controlled? I don't know. The NSA is in there looking at every single thing too, and they can block anything they want. So I think to be censored, find new ways to get your message out besides the big names, the Googles, the YouTubes, and the Twitters, because going forward until the bad guys are completely taken out and we're back to some kind of free market type of system, they're going to squeeze out the alt media, and they're doing that. So we'll see what happens going forward. But then again, what are the alternatives? It's not like the mainstream media is growing at all. They're getting destroyed because of their lies, and people are seeing through those lies. So it'll be interesting going forward. But yeah, it's kind of sad to see the alt media getting squeezed so hard by these names that are supposed to be so free market, like Google and YouTube and Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, it was perfectly set up, right? We saw them set up the whole narrative around, hey, we have to watch out because there's so much fake news out there nowadays. We have to filter it. Then you had Facebook jump in, Zuckerberg jumped in and said, yeah, we're going to start screening our news, and then Apple and all these tech giants come in, and then what did they start doing? You saw the MSM start to produce their own fake news, right?
Oh yeah, and get busted for it. Which I loved when Trump said, "You're fake news. Shut the fuck up." Classic.
Yeah, he covered that a little bit today, and then obviously Pelosi and Cummins fell victim to it yesterday, where they actually quoted tweets from a fake Twitter account yesterday. Did you see that as well?
I heard about it. I didn't see it, but I mean, the whole Twitter thing, Trump loves to stir the pot with that, and what does it mean? And the media, the left media, has just gone insane. If you watch the presidential, the press briefings every day, it's just craziness going on out there. And I don't know, and until we get some truth and honesty that come out about who was controlling what with the Clinton campaign and all the Pizzagate stuff. I mean, it's the tip of the iceberg too, and so many things that are 50 times worse. The rigging of the markets, all that has to come out, and until it does, you're going to see a huge divide between the left and the right, and they're even starting fighting with each other. So supposedly there's going to be a lot, according to Cliff, there's going to be a lot coming out about pedophilia and the Hollywood media, because
right.
That'll be really interesting because they have so much power and sway over the indignation of Trump, and they're all about the power to the people. And give me a break, they're criminals too. And when that comes out, kind of everything falls apart.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And in regards to that, what have you seen on your channel as far as, are your listeners reporting anything in terms of the views, or we're getting reports that people are subscribed to our channel and then they'll come back to it and somehow they're unsubscribed. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, it happens a lot. And you can see it. If you look at your own metrics, for like YouTube, and you can see problems and strange things that go on. you put out a video, you think, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And then, you look and you have Pizzagate in the title, and it got 10 views instead of your normal 1,000 views. And that's part of the programming that's going on, and it's all behind the scenes, and they're controlling the narrative. And there's ways around it, but it's one of those things. The more you try to hide what you're trying to do, the less people who are going to find what you're trying to do, and the less people will be exposed to it. And that's our main focus when you do these YouTube things and try to spread this information far and wide, get people smarter about all the lies that are going on. And they went right to the source, and they're trying to block it. So I'd say for YouTube people, I'd say think about other sources that you can get your message out also, and definitely start your own website and get people going there. But they block that too. So yeah, it's tough. The battles go on so many fronts. Hopefully the Trump gang, the gang of the good guys behind the scenes, will take some of these bigger players out in the next couple months. But it will be chaotic, and I think everybody should be prepared for some chaos.
And it's really tough right now to talk about anything differently other than Trump and everything that's happening. You keep waiting for the next truth bomb to come out, and I'm like you. I mean, the truth has got to come out regarding this, and right now
that's the thing. Things like the 774 arrests in L.A. and not one media, mainstream media thing covered it, and it was insane. And you had the only thing I saw in the mainstream, it wasn't even on the mainstream. It was the LA police website was a YouTube video with like 20 different heads of the police departments and the human health and human services saying this is the biggest arrest we've ever had, and there's 474 and we freed all these children, and nothing covered in the mainstream media.
No, nothing at all. And that's and with the whole thing with the arrest of the we're calling it PG here just to keep the YouTube filters from smashing our views and everything. So we're saying PG instead.
See, that's the problem there. You can't say PG because it's completely opposite. It's like XXX.
Yeah. Exactly. And then also, hey, just a little bit on the lighter side, I was going through, and I always get your whenever you post a new video and everything, it always comes to my phone and everything. So I was checking out Pay Me My Silver Now. So why don't you talk to us a little bit around that, and how long have you been a musician, and do you do a band and everything else too?
I used to I used to want to be a rock star like everybody else. So I was like a singer-songwriter back in college, and I used to sing in pubs all around Santa Barbara and the Bay Area, San Francisco and Oakland, and it was great fun. And then I started having to get a job. I got a job in the banking industry, believe it or not. Worked there for a long time, 25 years. Just left that a couple years ago, and now I'm doing Road to Ruta full time. I've written 4 books now. The song "Pay Me My Silver Now" is a take on an old protest song, and it's a takeoff that I wrote, and I sang it at a couple of the Silver Summits and the GATA event, and I love it. It's fun because it gets everybody singing along, but at the same time,
it's a lot of fun. I could picture doing that at a karaoke, singing that song.
Hopefully one day, that'll go viral if Twitter ever let it, and or it's on YouTube.
Right.
And I mean, it talks about all the things we talked about today. It talks about the comics and rigging the markets, and when it gets high, they go naked short and all this stuff. And I threw it all in a song, and hopefully I tried to spread it around years and years ago. I just kind of re-uploaded it and started it fresh again. I'm going to play that song over and over again until these market riggers stop rigging the silver market, and we have a free market in silver one day.
It's catchy. I heard last week whenever I think I was in the carpool and I wasn't riding shotgun last week with V, and I heard you mention it. You kind of plugged it, and V, I don't think V had heard it at that time. I've since then have sent it to him, and I'm like, on my phone, I'm like trying to text him, like, he's plugging his song. Listen, you need to go listen to it and everything. But I found myself, I was watching, I started singing along with it. But yeah, so So check it out. But yeah, so we're coming close to the end of the show here, and want to thank our listeners for being with us today. Please make sure to check out roguemoney.net. We're working very hard to expand our audience on our YouTube platform. So please subscribe, tell your friends, family, neighbors, some of your enemies that you want to really piss off, tell them to subscribe to our channel so we can help you with that. And then also, more importantly, if you have not done so yet, also make sure you visit our Facebook page and follow us there as well. So I want to thank all of our listeners today, and I'll turn it over to you, Bix, so you can plug your stuff.
Yeah, go to roadtoruta.com. Put your email in there. I send out almost daily now. I'm doing a lot more videos, so Road to Ruta video YouTube channel. Subscribe, and hopefully the bad guys won't get rid of your subscription. But keep checking back, and there's a lot of information that the GATA guys have learned over the years that people new to this manipulation game don't know. So I'm trying to get that information out there so that we can all work together to end this insanity.
Yeah, absolutely. And now's the time. I mean, if you don't understand what's happening right now in terms of the amount of attacks on the, we call us the new truth media versus the all media, the truth media. So it's very important to subscribe, to share it. We want to thank all of our listeners for being with us today. And this is Bix and producer CJ, and we are over and out.